Children, by 1890, many Indians began to raise questions about the working style of the Congress. They felt that the Congress was very moderate in nature and they criticized their uh, approach to the British. They, in fact, they said that the Congress only used the P method. What was the P method? Prayers, petitions, and pleas. And pleas means pleading them. Okay, so they thought that in spite of all this, the British are continuing with their economic exploitation and leading us to poverty, okay, and exploiting them to a great extent. So they decided that this is not going to work, and some of the leaders in the Congress, like Bipin Chandra Pal, okay, from Bengal, then Bal Gangadhar Tilak from Maharashtra, and Lala Lajpat Rai from Punjab, these objected to the kind of the way of working of the Congress, which was very moderate in nature, and they said this will not work. We need to take a tough action against the British, and that is why this trio is called as Lal, Bal, and Pal. Okay. Now, children, as I told you, Lal, Bal, and Pal, these leaders were more extremist in nature, and they criticized the moderates, the early phase of the Congress, and they called that their kind of approach to the British was like politics of prayers. Okay, so they said no, we must have more radical methods, more aggressive methods of telling the British what they wanted, and they told the people that they must now rely on their own strength and not on the good intentions of the government, and people must fight for complete independence. Swaraj means independence. That is the only way that we can get back our independence, and it is at that time Bal Gangadhar raised that slogan, freedom is my birthright and I shall have it. So we see there are two kinds of views in the Congress. One who believed in the moderate kind of nature was only by writing letters, by praying and by pleading to the British that do something for us. But there was another section who were called as extremists or radicals. They said, no, this is not going to work. A prayer method is not going to work. We need to take a tough action. And he told the people that we must rely on your own strength. Like Modi ji is saying, Atmanirbhar. Now we must develop things on our own and not depend on what the Britishers want to. And our fight must be only to get independence and not to get small Indians into the government. We must have complete independence. Children, seeing the rise of nationalism in the country, and many leaders from Bengal were joining the Indian National Congress, and they saw the protests going on in all parts of the country. So the British decided on, especially Lord Curzon was given this role in 1905. The Viceroy Lord Curzon announced partition of Bengal. Now, partition of Bengal was one of the biggest province of the British India. At that time, Bengal was not only the Bengal, present-day Bengal. It consisted of Bihar, Orissa, and then Bengal, which is Bangladesh also. So it was a big province, and the reason that he gave was that the province was too big to be administered. So they are going to divide it into two parts, into East Bengal and West Bengal. Whereas the main intention was to curtail the influence of Bengali politicians and split the Bengali people, because many were joining and were criticizing the British. And also on the religious divide Hindus into Muslims. So East Bengal at that time had more of Muslim population and West Bengal had more of Hindu population. So they decided that this would curtail the nationalist movement in the country. So you see, Bengal was divided. On paper, he said that the province was too big, so to administer it properly, we are partitioning into two parts, East Bengal and West Bengal. But actually, the main motive was to curtail the nationalist movement and divide the country and divide the famous policy, British policy of divide and rule. So they divided it between Hindus and Muslim. East Bengal had more of Muslim population and West Bengal had more of Hindu population. That is why today also, although it is eastern part of our country, but we still call it as West Bengal. Children, with the partition of Bengal, the people of Bengal were very angry with the British. They realized the intentions of the British, that it was only to partition them on the basis of religion. That was the politics of divide and rule. And there was complete opposition from all sections of the society. Even the Congress, even though divided in their opinion, the moderates and the extremists or the radicals, they all supported this and opposed it, and large meetings and demonstrations took place, and they started the Swadeshi movement. That means complete boycott of British things. And although it was strong in Bengal because there it happened, but we could see in other parts of the country also this movement started. That means boycotting of British goods, and that is the Swadeshi movement. So we see this also happening in Deltic Andhra. Deltic means on the coastal parts of Andhra. This movement started, which was called the Vande Mataram movement. And we'll see the main objectives. What were the main objectives of this Swadeshi movement? Children, there was widespread participation from all the classes of the society. Women, students actively participated in the Swadeshi movement, and the leaders now decided that we must oppose British rule and encourage ideas which were Indian. They wanted Indian goods to be made. They did not want children to be sent to English schools, use Indian languages, and now they wanted complete independence. So this is a message and the main objective of the Swadeshi movement, which they wanted each and every Indian to follow. So, but how did they do this? They said we must have mass mobilization. Mass means everyone now should participating, and the kind of communication that went around all throughout the country, everyone now decided to boycott British things. Okay, all kinds of institutions, not going to law courts, not be under the British judges, leave the schools, colleges, boycott whatever the Britishers are doing in the government. And even if they had to take up revolutionary or violent method, they would. So this was the main. It started with the partition of Bengal, which led to the Swadeshi movement. And now people realize that we must make things on our own and not depend on the British for anything. Like today, as I told you earlier also, Modi ji is stressing, because of our China relation with China, we must now become self-reliant. That means Atma Nirbhar. Children, with the partition of Bengal, the Britishers sowed the seed of divide and rule. Now, with the partition of Bengal, they instilled in the minds of the Muslims that they are just minorities, and they will hardly get any seat within the government because they are less in number, and they sowed the seeds of communalism in them. And so some group of landlords and nawabs thought on this, and they formed a party in 1906 called All India Muslim Leagues at Dhaka. And once they realized that it is a time when they should have separate electorate for themselves. What is the meaning of separate? That since Bengal was partition, and I told you East Bengal had more of Muslims, so they will have an electorate there, which will be only the Muslims can stand for election, and only the Muslim populations will vote for them. The others who are there, like Sikhs and Hindus, they will be in minority. There is a difference between separate and reserved. Reserved means only in few constituencies some seats will be reserved for the Muslims, but here they had a complete separate electorate for the Muslims, which the British agreed to. So this party was formed, and then they supported the partition of Bengal, because now the Britishers realized that maybe since they are in minority and to have a proper say in the government, they must have a separate electorate for themselves. So this partition actually laid the seed of communalism in the country, and the Britishers' outcome was that yes, they succeeded in dividing Hindus and Muslims. Children, as I mentioned earlier, that there was difference of opinion in the Congress party. One section, who were called as the moderates, believed in only politics of prayers. That means they believed only in writing letters and praying and pleading to the British government to have more Indians in the administration. Whereas there was another section and in spite of all these petitions and prayers, the British continued to exploit them. So the other section, or even members of the Congress, felt that this is of no use. They should use the method of boycott and use more force. So, but the moderate section of the Congress opposed the use of boycott. They said, no, we will not use any kind of violence or oppose them. We will continue to work in this manner. So that's led to the split within the Congress. One section, who were called as moderates, and the other section were called as extremists or radicals. And the three main leaders of the extremists, as I've already told you, they were Bal, Pal and Lal. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal and Lala Lajpat Rai. Okay, so you see, this is what happened, and that led to the split in 1907, which was called as a Surat split. So Congress was divided into two groups. One became to be known as the moderates under the leadership of the moderate leaders, and Tilak, who followed the extremist part of the Congress. Okay. Children, now with the split of the Congress, people felt that the Congress party will never unite, but there was still ray of hope. In December 1916, the two groups, the moderates and the extremists, or extremists also called as radicals, reunited, and they decided to work together by signing the Lucknow Pact, in which both the Congress and the Muslims and both the sections of the Congress decided to work together for having a greater representation of Indians in the government of the country. So we see some hope again when they all decided that they will work as one united force to drive the British from our country and have more Indians in the administration.